Your kid will have to have earned incomes.
Right.
But this could be babysitting income. They're mowing lawns. If you have a small business or a rental property, you can pay them from your small business. My partner, Mark, and I have podcast episodes on our Main Street Business podcast on how to pay your kids if you're a business owner, a real estate investor, and like all the great tax strategies. Because let's be honest, if you own a business, pay them from your business. You take a tax deduction to pay them, right? Mm-hmm. And you pay to them, and they're below the standard deduction. They don't even pay income tax. And then we throw it into a Roth IRA. It's like win-win, IRS lose.
Taxes are your biggest expense. The best way to reduce your burden is real estate. Increase your income with amazing returns and reduce your taxable income with real estate write-offs. As an employee with a high salary, you're devastated by taxes. Lighten your burden with real estate tax incentives. You can offset your income with a W-2 job and from capital gains. Freedom Family Investments is the experienced partner you've been looking for. Our Real Estate Insider Fund is the vehicle. This fund invests in real estate projects that make an impact, and you can join us with as little as $50,000. Insiders get preferred returns of 10 to 12%. This means you get paid first. Insiders enjoy cash flow on a quarterly basis, and the tax benefits are life-changing. Join the Freedom Family and become a real estate insider. Start on your path to financial freedom through passive income. Text FAMILY to 66866. That's family to 66866. This is not a solicitation. Please text regarding this opportunity for complete details. This is for accredited investors only.
Check out the website simplepassivecashflow.com for podcasts, videos, articles, and free e-courses. If you guys have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to the team via email, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction, whether it be an educational course or information about syndication deals. If you haven't read my book, The Journey to Simple Passive Cashflow, click the link below to get a free copy. Thanks to John and the Wealth and Freedom Nexus podcast. Our team is here to help you take the first step, or if you're a seasoned investor, then we're here to expand your reach into alternative investing.
Are you tired of trying to keep ahead in the rat race, only to have so much of your hard-earned money going to the tax collector? Equity doesn't pay the bills. Retirement savings don't pay you now, and there are only 24 hours in a day to work. The only solution is passive income that pays you 24/7 now, not 40 years from now. From vetted investment opportunities to tax saving strategies. Let John guide you through all the confusion and take control of your financial life in pursuit of financial freedom. So sit back, relax, and welcome to the Wealth and Freedom Nexus.
Hey there, welcome back to another great episode of the Wealth and Freedom Nexus podcast. As always, I'm John Rickgarn, your host, investor, educator, and realtor. As always, be sure to subscribe and support this podcast. Feel free to follow me on my social media channels, my YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, or X, as I guess Elon Musk has renamed it. I guess I need to update the logo that's above my shoulder right now from the bird to the black X mark, or maybe he'll change it again. Who knows? But also looking at doing some monthly bonus episodes that will only be available to subscribers. For subscribers through BuzzFeed, you can see a link on that in the show notes. Only $3 a month to help this podcast keep going. And like I said, looking at releasing some subscriber-only podcasts, probably once a month. Right now, working on one of what I have learned investing in precious metals over the last, almost 10 years now, kind of the do's, the don'ts, what I've personally experienced, and maybe my thoughts on it as well. Also, be sure to sign up for my newsletter. Been getting a lot of traction with that lately. Again, this newsletter is just monthly, not weekly or daily or hourly. I don't spam you. I don't sell the email list to other people where you sign up and then you're getting multiple emails a day. Ask me how I know about that in this space. This is just a monthly newsletter. That's it. I know I'm over 100 subscribers now. I honestly don't know the exact number. I should probably take a look at that. But for the longest time, I think for the first 2 years since I launched my website, the wealthandfreedomnexus.com, I had, I don't know, 10 or 15 subscribers. And they were probably mostly sympathetic friends and families like, sure, whatever. I'll sign up for John's newsletter. So self-directed retirement accounts. I've mentioned this. I've talked about this numerous times on this podcast, such as episodes 6, 15, 43, and 68. With Specialized Trust and Quest Trust. Both of those entities I have accounts with, mostly Roth holdings, but felt that since it's been about 6 months since I've touched base on this topic, that it was time to bring on another guest, a fresh guest from a new firm that I personally have not worked with. I don't have any accounts with them, at least not yet, but I have followed this guest for quite a while and can certainly see this as a viable option in case something happens to one of my other custodians. So a quick little rundown of today's guest. This is Mat Sorenson. He is an attorney and a CEO of Directed IRA. Directed IRA provides IRA and 401k accounts that can be invested into real estate, private funds and companies, notes, LLCs, small businesses, crypto, and other alternative assets. His knowledge as an attorney is sought after for real estate, private funds, notes, and the rules and regulations within the IRS code. Mat is also the best-selling author of the Self-Directed IRA Handbook, an authoritative guide for self-directed retirement plan investors and their advisors. He has in the notes that over 40,000 copies of this has been sold as a go-to book for investors as well as professionals in the self-directed IRA industry. It has been used by industry associations and government agencies. Mat is also the VP contributor to Entrepreneur and has been cited, referenced, or quoted by the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and The Guardian on self-directed topics. He is a personal finance expert, owns businesses with over 100 employees, and is a real estate investor himself. He is also, as if he doesn't have enough on his plate, is also a senior partner at KKOS Lawyers, a business and tax law firm. And he puts in here, he kind of jokes, he attempts to maintain his youth by skiing and racing road and mountain bikes. So that was kind of an interesting bio I just had to share there. I really enjoyed this conversation as well because there has been one longstanding question in regards to self-directed IRAs, if you can or cannot own this in a self-directed IRA and why you can't, shall we say. There was a story I heard years ago. I mentioned it on the show. You'll have to listen in. Mat actually called BS on this, and he had never actually heard that story. And hindsight 2020, I wish all those years ago that I can't remember for the life of me where I read it, but I wish I kept it. It's in this book, page 59 or whatever the heck it was. So anyways, speaking of books, and just for all those listeners out there, if you're watching on YouTube or if you listening to this on podcast, be sure to grab a copy. I'm going to try to get this here, but I have a copy of Mat's Self-Directed IRA Handbook here. I'm actually doing a giveaway. So the first person to do an Apple podcast review, this is a brand new review. So if anyone's left me a review before, thank you dearly, but you can't copy and paste, what you put 6 months ago, a year ago, et cetera on this. So this is for new users that have come across this podcast. They like it. They have left a 5-star rating and a review. Basically, a review on Apple Podcasts is in Word format, what you like, what you don't like, what you like to see, et cetera. Send a screenshot of that to me to John at wealthandfreedomnexus.com. That email again is John at wealthandfreedomnexus.com. Otherwise, I'm sure you can find me just on any social media platform and DM me. For the first person that does this, you will get a free copy of this book. The copy that I am holding right here, that is free, including shipping. You don't have to pay for shipping and handling. I will pay for the shipping and handling. But side note, this is only to people in the United States. I found out the hard way. This was maybe a year ago or so. I did another promo like this. It was like $25 to send a book to Malaysia. But, first time, dealing with that, it's like, okay, I want to honor my word. I said, this would be free shipping. I didn't have any restrictions. So, okay, bit the bullet and, sent the book, the shipping cost more than the book itself. But, lesson learned, like I said. So for any US listeners, subscribers, again, thank you for your support. And the first person that sends me a screenshot of that rating and review on Apple Podcast will get a free copy of this book, the Self-Directed IRA Handbook. So with that, we'll get into today's interview after a word from one of our longtime sponsors. For investors seeking DSCR financing, check out timothyhero.com. The guy has closed over 150 DSCR loans in the last 2 years and has been appearing on podcasts and written about by journalists. He's well connected with some of the best lenders in the game and can get you the financing for your rental properties. Matt, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I love talking about this stuff. So self-directed IRAs, that's my thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I like kind of sharing it too. I think a lot of people are like, well, I self-direct my retirement account. I have, Google stock, I have Netflix stock, I have Facebook stock. So I self-directed, and it's like, well, there's more than you can do with that. Yeah. So.
You are self-directing. You're just a very narrow lane.
Exactly. Yeah. So now maybe, Matt, we can just kind of start with that. If you can give my viewers and listeners kind of a brief background on yourself, as well as, how you got involved or started in, true self-directed retirement account space.
Yeah, I mean, so self-directing really is you can use your IRA or 401k to invest in any asset allowed by law. And we'll go into some of the restrictions, but most people just think, oh, my IRA can buy a stock, bond, or mutual fund. It can, but that's not the only thing. The only reason that's all is because most IRAs are at a broker dealer, and broker dealers just let you invest in what they sell. Yeah. So like my company, Directed IRA, we're a self-directed company in the true sense in that you can buy real estate. You can invest in a startup. You can invest in a small business. You can invest in a private fund. You can do private money lending, all these types of assets. You can own crypto. These are all assets your IRA can actually own. You just can't do it at a broker dealer because they limit you to what they sell. So our company will let you use your IRA, and we have 1.5 billion in assets in whatever you like, as long as it's allowed by law.
Okay. Gotcha.
But you asked how I got into it, though, which was, I was a lawyer, and this was back in 2006. And I had a client that just wanted to buy real estate with an IRA. Okay. And my partner, I was an attorney working for him at the time. We partnered a couple of years later, but my law firm partner, Mark Kohler, he had done this a little bit. And so he gave me a quick primer on it. And then I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'd never heard of it. Wasn't on the bar exam, didn't hear about it in law school. I worked for a financial company through law school in their legal department, never heard of it. And so I was just totally intrigued by it because I kind of like off Wall Street investments. I didn't know it at the time, but I just love that idea that you could invest in a small business, you could buy real estate. And so it just kind of came to me from a client wanting to do it.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah, it's always interesting, hearing unique investments, so to speak, everyone's heard of or themselves have invested in a retirement fund, but we can, touch base on that later. Now, Matt, you had mentioned you are able to invest in anything required by law. And I've mentioned a few things, a few times on this show, there are a few exceptions. And one of them I've always heard is artwork. Like you can't go to wherever it is, France, buy the Mona Lisa. All right, the Mona Lisa is now in my self-directed Roth account or whatever. Now, I've heard two stories on this. One, I think back in the 70s, someone did own an IRA. Long story short, they found out it was illegally taken by the Nazis. So then they tried to get it back to the rightful owners, but then they're like, do the asset protection features of the trust, they couldn't touch it. So then Congress was like, well, just ban all artwork and then we'll never have to worry about this again. On the other side of it, and maybe there's truth to both of this, that the art world can be very subjective, especially if there's only one of a certain artwork. You may say, oh, this is worth 10,000. I might say it's worth 10 million. Okay, we'll go off of John's valuation. We'll say this IRA is 10 million. Can you, with your background experience, can you elaborate on either of those stories and maybe put to bed or rest once and for all?
Yeah. I hate to say it, but I'm going to call BS on that story.
Okay.
So I'm glad you're fact checking this. You're like, is this one right? For a couple reasons.
Okay.
One, and I'm going to come back to point one here, but one is that is not that reason of the asset protection of the retirement account is actually wrong. I'll come back to that and what that means. But I'd never heard that story. I mean, I've read everything in this subject. I wrote the #1 book in the space. I speak at all the national associations. The federal and state government agencies use my book. Like I've been around the block a lot in this area. Never heard that story, which tends to me that it's not legit. But here's an important thing. There's 2 important points I want to make on that. We love retirement accounts because they do have great asset protection tools. It's not just there's great tax benefits, invest in what you know. There's all these cool things about retirement accounts, but there is some cool asset protection. But the asset protection for a retirement account is if Mat Sorenson personally gets sued and someone has a judgment against Mat Sorenson, they cannot come into my IRA or 401k. So let's say I default on a credit card. I'm texting and driving, whatever.
Gotcha.
I personally guarantee a loan and they're coming after Mat Sorenson's assets. What the creditor laws say is we're not going to let your personal creditor go into your retirement account.
Gotcha.
However, your retirement account for its own investments and what it's doing is responsible for its own liabilities. So if my retirement account did something like that illegal and a creditor was chasing after my retirement account for what my retirement account did in buying an asset that it shouldn't have or whatever, that would be okay. The creditor could still get into it. And so the asset protection rule in that story got a little twisted. But that's a very common thing. People misunderstand the asset protection. But there's like the story of O.J. Simpson, right? Like, O.J. Simpson, not guilty in his criminal trial, but he got a civil judgment from the Goldman family for like $30 million, but they could never collect on his NFL pension. Right. He was making hundreds of thousands of dollars from his NFL pension. They couldn't collect a dime because it was all protected in a retirement account, even the distributions when he got the cash.
Wow.
Those are also protected so he could spend and use those funds. And so there is some awesome asset protection against your personal assets that's a benefit of retirement accounts. But in that example, not legit. And I can get into the other reasons here on why art is actually restricted if you want.
Yeah, no, I've always, like I said, always just been kind of curious where it's, did someone fail art class? So that's why back in some beginning days, they say, what should we not allow? Yeah, we don't want art in there,
Yeah. Some senator's got a beef from his, 10th grade art teacher. But here's the real reason though. And there are some assets that are restricted, collectible items. So in the code in section 408 of the tax code, I'm a tax lawyer, so I don't mean to bore you with it, but it is in section 408. It restricts collectible items. And collectible items, the common collectibles that they were trying to restrict there were literal art that you'd hang on a wall, even sculptures, paintings, whatever you may want to call it, antique cars. People were buying antique cars and they're like driving them on the weekend. They were buying the art and hanging it at their home or their office. They were buying wine collections that turned into bottle collections, And so there's like all this abuse of the retirement accounts on collectible items because it's kind of like this quasi-personal asset and investment. And they're like, you know what? Your retirement account should just be having 100% investment intent. So they restricted collectibles. Now within collectibles, they said, but we will let you own certain precious metals. Criteria. So there are like gold and silver. You can own those things. You got to store it properly.
Sure.
But there's some you have to meet the requirements on precious metals.
Okay. Makes sense. Now with that, Matt, too, and I don't know if you've come across this and I won't mention names on this podcast or anything. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but there is a certain platform that does securitize art and they say, hey, you can't afford, I'm just throwing a number, $1 million for this rare painting, but hey, we can pool 100 people, $10,000, then they can afford it. And like you just said, okay, we can't own collectibles in our retirement account. But again, I won't name names, but there's another platform that says, hey, with our self-directed retirement account, you can go through this platform and essentially own a piece of art. Now, since that's kind of like a securitization of the art, you're not like owning the art itself. Is that a loophole or both of those? It's like, as soon as someone gets caught, they're going to be going to tax court on this.
This is going to be a super nuanced answer. Our rule of thumb is we don't let you own art, period. I don't care if you're investing in a fund or through an LLC or whatever, but there is a possibility. I'm just saying this is a little gray area.
Sure.
So the rules for retirement accounts, like the rule that says you can't own collectible.
Mm-hmm.
What about when my IRA invests in a fund? Is the fund restricted to the same rules that my IRA is? And so there's something called the plan asset rule that says, hey, whatever rules my retirement account subjected to, my retirement plan, whatever the fund I'm investing to is also subject to those rules if that fund has 25% or more of its assets in retirement accounts.
Okay.
Now, let's say that only 10% of that LLC, limited partnership, whatever it is that owns this art, let's say that only 10% of that is retirement accounts. Under the laws, technically, the plan asset rule does not apply to the fund. So the rules for retirement accounts do not apply to the fund. Therefore, the fund can go own that. And so I don't know if that's what they're relying on and they're staying below 25%. It's a possibility. Even so, from us and my preference, I don't know that I love that.
Sure.
So, but that must be my guess is they're staying below 25% and they're hanging their hat on the plan asset rule doesn't apply.
Interesting. Okay.
For anyone still listening to the podcast, sorry, I got technical there, but that's the answers.
Huntsville, Alabama, the Rocket City, the Star of Alabama, the most populous city in Alabama, ranked as the best place to live by U.S. News and World Report. It's also a great place to invest in, and best of all, it is the place for this year's Spartan Summit by Spartan Invest. Join me and many other investors as we tour the Huntsville market with the Spartan team. Learn what sets their property management and turnkey services apart from others, and why they have been consistently ranked on Inc. 5000's fastest growing companies. Go to SpartanInvest.com today and reserve your tickets. Best of all, use promo code WFreedomNexus for 15% off your tickets. Join me October 4th through the 6th in Huntsville, Alabama, and unlock your legacy with Spartan Invest. We talked a little bit about precious metals, art may or may not be able to under certain percentage thresholds and syndication fund, real estate, private lending, etc. I have my own answers to this. I've heard some other very unique investments, but between you, your firm, your years of expertise, what's been the most unique investment you've seen in a self-directed retirement account?
I've had clients buy shares in Racehorses, in an LLC that literally ran at, Kentucky Derby. I've had clients buy a Mexican soccer team. Of clients that was actually owned through a Delaware corporation that owned a legit professional Mexican soccer team with like $1 million payroll football soccer players,
Wow.
Had clients buy livestock and cattle.
Okay.
Clients buy, obviously, crypto, real estate. I mean, we had clients buy air rights in real estate,
Really?
Clients buy air, we've had clients buy like water rights and stuff like that, but like air rights, which is kind of like views. It's in a lot of like cities and stuff, like the space above. Anyways, but I mean, we just that's the nice thing about self-directed IRAs because like collectibles are restricted,
right?
S corporations and life insurance, those are the assets restricted. So like all those things I mentioned, not restricted. But the kind of the bread and butter stuff is going to be rental real estate, single family homes, duplex, people investing in syndicated deals, people where, there's 100 people or 50 people buying an apartment building or a commercial property. And so those are very popular. People doing private money lending. Like I just want to be that private money lender with my IRA and get 10%, 12% and 2 points, on the deals and just be the bank. I don't want to do the deals. I just want to be the bank. So that's kind of more, bread and butter stuff, but there's always interesting stuff. And I think what I've seen is people invest in what they know. Right. So that's always my mantra is like, if you're good at real estate, invest in real estate. If you're good at crypto, invest in crypto. And honestly, if you're good at the stock market, do that. Don't self-direct and go buy real estate. Like keep doing that if you're really good at it. So the fact of the matter is most people aren't,
Exactly.
So, and they can maybe perform better in these other assets, but I had just some other interesting ones. I had a client, it's just weird. I mean, I've had clients that like invest in, let's just call it male performance enhancing drugs. Okay. And these were doctors actually investing in a startup that had a developing a patent for some, performance enhancing drugs. Let's just leave it at that.
Sure.
But I had some dentists. I had invest in like a mouthpiece type business that was invest in like creating mouthpieces for people to sleep at night.
Okay.
And so that was just like their lane. They knew it. They knew the need. They knew the technology, could make sense and sell. And so I've had a lot of software or tech clients invest in different types of software technology that they knew. And so we get that a lot too. Is just people kind of like, they got this really narrow area of expertise or in an industry they've been in for 20 years, and they're seeing the next thing in that, and they're trying to invest early in it.
Right. Well, and especially and I'm sure you're a big proponent as well, where the Roth components, whether Roth IRA or Roth 401k, if you have it grow from 1,000 to 100 million, well, that's 99,999,000, et cetera. Growth is tax free, where, tax deferred account, it's like, okay, kick the tax can down the bucket, and now you own a big chunk of money of that to the government. So
we definitely huge Roth fans. The majority of our accounts are Roth, which is not common in the industry in general, but we just preach the Roth concept, and we just as tax lawyers by trade, and in my law firm KKOS Lawyers as a tax lawyer, I mean, we kind of came from, this is a tax tool, like using a Roth and having to pay zero tax, even if it's just like I flip a property, and it comes back to my IRA, I pay no tax. I got to use the whole thing to go buy the next deal. If you think of investing for 20 or 30 years where you're paying no tax, I mean, the investment returns you can have is massive. And you get that with a traditional IRA too, right? I don't pay any taxes as I go, and I'm buying and selling assets. But on the way out, it's a little painful in the traditional because you pay tax as you're drawing it out. Whereas the Roth is like this tax-free ATM. Like, ching.
Yeah, I think my friend MC Lauscher always put it best: to pay tax on the seed, not the harvest. And I think that's what so many people get, misunderstood. Like, oh, I'm deferring taxes, I'm saving on taxes. Like, do you know what deferred means? And it could be a time bomb or tax bomb later on. So
I mean, the government will get paid at some point. And
exactly.
And do you think tax rates are going to be less in the future or more?
Yeah, probably not. Well, even right now with the Trump tax cuts, they're pretty much set to sunset in 2026. So right there, you're kind of a guaranteed tax bump right there. So now, Matt, I'm sure you're familiar with this story too. And obviously ProPublica, what was it, 2 years ago, I think, blasted this all over. Peter Thiel put, a few $1,000s into his Roth, started investing in tech startups, grew and grew and grew and grew. And now supposedly he's got like $5 billion in a Roth IRA, that's been validated or not. I don't, reasonably, I don't think all of us can expect to get, that type of return. But what's been the most lucrative return you've seen with one of your customers where there's a startup or some spec thing that just compounded dramatically?
So I mean, that story was true. The Peter Thiel $5 billion Roth IRA, that caused a lot of congressional grief, of course, not only because it was totally tax-free but because Peter Thiel is very politically active, backing a lot of Republicans and particularly conservative Republicans. So it caused a lot of angst amongst Democrats. Anyways, it became political, unfortunately. So, but I mean, the stuff that I've seen, I'd say my largest client has a 300 million Roth IRA.
Wow.
He's just a real estate client.
Okay.
Real estate deals, but he does big real estate development type deals in large amounts. But, everyone from a Roth IRA or retirement account, everybody started at zero. I don't think he inherited money, right?
Right.
So he just got insane returns on deals that he was doing. I have only a handful of clients over 100 million, but I got hundreds over 10 million, that I've encountered.
Wow.
And what those clients are doing is all unique. I've got a lot of private equity clients that are just investing in businesses and opportunities and most of those clients are Roth clients. So then lots over the million. But you know what? A lot of people that self-direct, like the median, account here is like $100,000.
Okay.
I think it's about 130 or 150 is like our average account here.
Okay.
And it's most people that are like just rolling over. Like they got an IRA or 401k, they've been saving in and they've been on the stock market roller coaster. They don't know what's up or down. They couldn't even tell you the name of the mutual fund they're invested in. And they're kind of like, damn it, I'm going to finally like take control of this money and invest in what I want and get like attached to this. I've got this actual nest egg over here that can make a difference in my life and future. And I've just been letting Wall Street just trust it. I'm just trusting them to make it work out for me. And so that's a lot of clients. So, and I think that there's really kind of three different groups of people who like to self-direct. You know, I'd say there's the tax savvy crowd that's like, I know how to make money in one certain area. And let's say it's real estate or private equity or whatever your thing is. And I'm going to use the Roth IRA as a tool. I already can make money outside my retirement account hand over fist. I'm already good at whatever it is I'm doing, but I'm going to use the Roth as this special tool that I can do it and keep all my returns and do it tax-free, right? That's what's one class. The second class of people are like, hey, I just don't think the returns of the stock market or these mutual funds or target date funds I've had are satisfying. And I think I can do better. And a lot of those clients are literally just buying simple, easy stuff, buy and hold rentals that cash flow and appreciate better than the stock market. You know, they're not doing anything sexy. This is more the Mat Sorenson crowd, by the way. This is me. Right, you know? So, I mean, I got 100+ employees. I'm busy running and building a business. I can't go hunt all day long with my self-directed retirement account. But then the third class of people are just like, they want hard assets. They don't like the paper asset idea of the stock market and the idea that something can go totally to zero, right? I mean, like you could own a Silicon Valley Bank stock that goes to zero. Enron or something, you know, it's like a goose egg. And so they like a hard asset, and that could be real estate, that could be precious metals, that could be other things that like just have value, and it's a hard asset in and of itself.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. And I don't know, I think I'm a little mix of all three of those. I like the hard assets. I like that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe just
me too, actually. There's like a Venn diagram where like,
exactly. I'm right in the center there. Yeah. So now, you know, we talked about some of the, you know, what you can enjoy in the, you know, Roth account. I'm a big Roth proponent as well. As far as who can have a Roth account now, you know, I've been kind of kicking this idea around for a while. At the time of this recording, my son's actually going to turn 2 here in a few months. Could we open a Roth IRA account for him and hire him some way, or do you have to do like an UTMA account or something to skirt the tax liability? Or
Ooh, this is cool, John. You're going to like this. All right. Okay. We have what's called a kids Roth IRA at Directed. And the reason I love a kids Roth IRA is you can put the $6,500 in a year for them. They have to have earned income. We'll come back to that. They got to have earned income. But this can be invested and start growing and building up. And remember, this comes out totally tax-free. But that $6,500 of contributions you put in every year, let's say you did it for 10 years. They started at 8, you know, and by the time they're 18, they've got $65,000 of contributions in there. But the investment returns have maybe doubled the account, which is totally reasonable over a 10-year window. It should probably do better than that. But let's just say they doubled. So now the account's worth $130,000. Well, you can always pull your contributions out tax and penalty free at any time. So they hit 18 and they're like, hey, I want to pull this money out and start using it today. I want it to go to college or trade school or start a small business or whatever. They can do that without tax or penalty. So whatever you put into a Roth IRA can always come out tax and penalty free. So think of it as a savings account that you can touch anyways. A lot of people think of a Roth IRA, especially for their kids or that are younger, and are like, no, I don't want to save in that. I'm like 20 or 30 and I'm not worried about when I'm 60. You can pull out what you put in totally tax and penalty free. It's just the investment gains and returns that are going to get stuck in there until you reach retirement. And that's a unique thing of a Roth. Another reason I love the Roth is in a traditional IRA or 401k. If I drop that money in, it is, I took a tax deduction on it. I get a penalty in tax to pull it out early. Even the contribution. So that's cool for the Roth, but your kid will have to have earned income. But this could be babysitting income. They're mowing lawns. If you have a small business or a rental property, you can pay them from your small business. My partner, Mark, and I have podcast episodes on our Main Street Business podcast on how to pay your kids if you're a business owner, a real estate investor, and like all the great tax strategies. Because let's be honest, if you own a business, pay them from your business. You take a tax deduction to pay them, right? And you pay to them, and they're below the standard deduction. They don't even pay income tax. And then we throw it into a Roth IRA. It's like win-win-win, IRS lose. So that's a great little tax strategy, but also it's a way to teach your kid how to save, too. Like teach them the principle of that. They can see that the account grows and this money makes more money, and that money that made money makes more money, and that's a compounding thing. It could be cool.
Sure. So as long as it meets the criteria that it is, quote, earned income, it isn't just here's $6,500, son, for breathing oxygen. I don't know. Or, if he had a rental property, well, then they're talking portfolio or passive income. It has to actually be earned income from like a W-2 or 1099.
Hey, I was mowing my dad's rental property lawns when I was 12. You know what I mean? So like I was doing it, and Mark and my partner, he was cleaning the office at his dad's laboratories, like when we talk about this, we're sitting here in the studio where we record our podcast. I mean, and so many of our clients, they're small business owners, and so it's easy for them to find a way to pay their kids, but the kid literally has to work in there, and it needs to be reasonable. You can't pay your kid for $6,500 for a day's worth of work.
Gotcha.
So it's got to be a reasonable amount, and then you just got to do the process right. But there's no withholding. There's no Social Security or Medicare when you're paying your own kid. There's an exception to that.
Really?
So okay. Cooler and easier than that. Yes.
Okay.
So you got to do it right. You got to do it right to pay them, but podcast episode on that. Just go to Main Street Business Podcast, and there's a podcast about on paying your kids.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. I'll have, for those listening or, walking the dog while listening to this, I'll have that in the show notes to check that out as well. So, I pay him $6,500, or whatever the new limit is, has to be earned income. I'm assuming this could be worked out a way that, say, he gets older, he can do babysitting, lawn mowing, whatever, that others hire him as well. And then he just has to get 1099, or how does that work then?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's earned income. I mean, he can get a 1099, doesn't have to, could have a W-2, like, working at a restaurant, or, like my daughter's in high school. She works at a restaurant as a hostess, she gets a W-2 and like, so that's legit, but it doesn't have to be. Like, this could be, the neighbor that they mow their lawn for $20 every week, half the year. And I don't know, whatever that adds up to, but maybe it's $1,000,
Gotcha.
And so, no, not that much, but you know what I mean? Whatever that amount is, that's what they can contribute. Now, some companies that do kid Roth IRAs, like let's say Fidelity, they will make you show a W-2 or even a tax return. The problem with that is most of our clients that are small business owners, or most kids, they don't have that.
Right.
Or they're below the standard deduction, so you don't even have to file. And so we don't require that on our accounts. We just make you attest that the income is earned income. Gotcha. And the parent guardian is responsible and has decision-making authority for the account. But keep in mind, when they hit 18, it's their account.
Sure.
Like they can legally go drain the thing if they want. So make sure you're teaching your kids how to handle their money and manage their funds.
And I'm guessing the standard deductions, just like a single person, is it 12,000 or under, give or take?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And most states have that same amount, but there are some states that have a lower standard deduction than the federal. So there could be a little weird situation. Let's say you paid them 10 grand or something, but your state has a standard deduction of 5. So they don't have to file a federal return, but they have to file a state return.
Okay. So, I'll have to look that up. Minnesota, land of 10,000 taxes. I'm sure Emperor Waltz has the standard deduction, $500 or something, but I'll have to research that later. One other little nuance I thought of, Matt, this is something I've done outside of my retirement account for years. I buy Lego sets that are on discount, wait till they're discontinued, and then sell them, 2-3 times what I paid for them. Could I, in theory, do that in a Roth, or are the Legos then considered collectibles at that point?
That sounds like a collectible. Okay. Unfortunately.
Sure.
Yeah. Same with like sports cards or things like that. They're going to fall into this collectible lane.
Okay.
Because that's the value they hold, right?
Right.
And we do have clients that are like, what if I bought a car and sold a car? Okay. It's not a collectible, right?
Right.
This like Ford F-150, the 2008, it's like
not exactly collectible.
Yeah. I mean, you can maybe be able to buy it cheap and sell it high, and so that could be a possibility. But if this was like, a 1967 Ford F-150, I don't know when it came out, but whatever. I mean, that has collectible value. And I think the Legos, as you described it, because it's like they're not being made in particular, that sounds collectible to me.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good. Well, as we wrap this up, Matt, again, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. Sorry we had to reschedule and a few little tech glitches in there as well. Maybe just as a final note, hypothetically, Matt has been given the executive order authority to anything and everything self-directed retirement accounts. If there was like one thing you could change in the, self-directed retirement world, what would it be? Like eliminate earned income thresholds, everyone can get a Roth. What would you're given supreme power. What would you do at that point?
Yeah, man, this sounds amazing. Well, to start, here's the biggest problem. The biggest problem is contribution limits.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things from Americans is we're a little lazy. And so a lot of people, they get to I get to see this all the time. Clients, they're in their 40s and 50s. They haven't put a dime in a retirement account. And the government's like, oh, you're 50. Instead of putting $6,500 in your IRA every year, we'll let you put $7,500 in a year.
Yeah.
That extra $1,000 over 10 years, that $10,000 from between 50 and 60, that's really going to help you retire.
Yeah.
Right? But then on the other hand, they're like, well, we need to get more money into Social Security and we need to do this. Let people freaking save and invest for themselves. Why are we capping how much money they can put in their retirement account? If you're going to save money and build it to use it in retirement at 59 and a half or later, like, why are we capping that? We don't want people to have to be reliant on Social Security. So what I would do is I would take away restrictions, or if there was caps, I'm talking like $100,000 plus type cap on how much you could put in, because this money is set aside for retirement. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, people need to have $2.5 million to retire. Like that's really how much they got to have to retire. Now, this could be a combination of equity in your home and other savings in your retirement account. But let's face it, the vast majority of Americans save in a retirement account. Like this money, it's for when they're 60 plus, it's mostly in a retirement account. Mm-hmm. And so we got to take away the caps, let people save as much as they can in these accounts. Let it be Roth. They don't need a tax deduction now.
Right.
It's not going to cost the government money now. Let it be Roth. Mm-hmm. But let them grow it and invest it, because that's probably one of the greatest rejections to some people from a retirement account is they're in their 40s and 50s and they think I can only put so much in.
Right.
It's not going to be worth it to save. And so, whereas if I get a client that worked at a W-2 job and they just were like diligent on their 401k and they're 40 now, and they're like, I got $500,000 in this thing, just because they just saved and they tried to max it out. Those people are like super involved in their account. They're like, I got a pot of money to work with now. This can work. I can invest and see this grow. And I could totally rely on just this if I had to in retirement. Cause I'm 40, I got another 20 years to triple this thing, or quadruple it. And so, but we need to give people enough money to start and get it going. So that's what I would do. And I'm Mat Sorenson. I'm running for president.
All right. Sounds good. Mat Sorenson 2024. I'll do that as a hashtag for the show notes. All right. Now, if anyone listening to this, Matt, I've touched base on self-directed retirement accounts numerous times on this podcast, but, if they're interested in doing a kids Roth account, they're interested in saying, what options can I do in my Roth? Can I roll this over from my employer account, et cetera? What's the best way to reach out to you, your firm, as well as the media and podcasts that you have out there?
Yeah, directedira.com is the best place to go. That's our company where we're doing self-directed accounts every day, opening up 30 accounts a day or so, helping clients across the country. Yeah. So we're growing fast, have an amazing, incredible team. Right there, you could schedule a new account call with one of our senior account reps or managers right on the homepage. You can get going over your situation and how a self-directed account could work for you. Now, we don't give investment advice. That's the one thing I'll say is like, you got to decide what you want to invest in. But if you're like, hey, I got this money over here, I want to buy real estate or do some whatever self-directed, invest in a private company or fund or LLC, whatever it is, we can help through that process and how it works and get it all going for you, make it painless. But we have our Directed IRA podcast. That's on all the podcast apps. It's also on my YouTube channel. Just Mat Sorenson with 1 T. You can find me on YouTube or any of my social handles. It's just Mat Sorenson too, at Mat Sorenson. And then we have our Main Street Business podcast, which is more about general tax and legal planning, building wealth. Both the podcasts I do with my partner, Mark Kohler, but that's also on all the podcast apps, and that's on his YouTube channel, Mark J. Kohler. So we're out there. I got my law firm too, KKOS Lawyers. For people that need tax and legal advice or business planning, KKOSlawyers.com, they can go there. So we're out there just trying to help clients live the American dream and use their retirement accounts to invest in what they know and actually like.
Right. Makes sense. No. And yeah, sounds good. And again, for all those listening, I'll have all those links in the show notes. But again, Matt, it was great to have you on the show. Glad there's another one out there that believes in self-directed accounts as much as I do. And at, you know, 30 accounts a day, hopefully that trend continues.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to share, rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. For more updates, check out www.wealthandfreedomnexus.com. Remember, nothing on this show should be considered tax, legal, investment, or professional advice. This show is produced solely for educational and informational purposes. Please consult an appropriate and licensed tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for specific advice for your situation. For distribution or publication rights or media interviews, please contact the host.